So we're going to start off this project with making the pattern from just a regular kind of poster board paper. Every single piece is made and planned and measured ahead of time so that the actual crafting of the bag goes smoothly. I like to write out everything, what every piece is, how many pieces are cut from that pattern. Here I am marking out the front loops on the bag. So I've already made one prototype at this point, and you'll see it here in a second. So this is me starting on the actual bag now. There's so much work that goes into it. A lot of this still isn't even shown in this video. This is a really large time lapse. Probably 40 hours of work goes into this. So there's the prototype that you get to see right there. Just very carefully cutting all the edges so that everything goes together perfectly. Here I am using a piece of Louis Vuitton from a bag that I scrapped a while back. Marking the quilting on the back, that was what you just saw there. So here I am skiving everything, measuring, make sure the thickness is where I want it. A lot of layers here. This bag is fully leather lined in the pocket area. You'll see foam padding come out earlier. There I'm just using a zipper guide, a brass zipper guide that slides over the teeth and makes everything really nice and straight when you go to apply your glue, or right there when I'm applying the zipper to the pocket. This is a Riri zipper. It's some of the best zippers in the world. Continuing working on the front pocket, that's where a lot of the main features are in this bag. So these will be the cross straps on the front of the pocket. So now I'm just marking placement for those straps. And then you just saw some sanding on those seam allowances right there. So everything gets glued down so that even in the event of a stitch failing, you still have the reinforcement of the adhesive. Just make things last longer. So here I am this is the outside of the front pocket on the chest, and this is the leather lining to that pocket. So everything has to be glued precisely. And now I'm using a technique I learned from Peter Neitz. Whenever I'm gluing the lining on the edges, I like to roll it. It just helps if it rolls towards the shape it's going to end up once you fold it inside out. That eliminates any sort of bunching when the extra material is on the inside, because you lose a little bit of material in the turn. And that was just a stitch around the zipper, and now starting to work on the gussets of the front pocket. It's a full one-piece gusset that wraps all the way around. So it is also leather lined, so that's what I'm doing right now, is doing that rolled edge, and then you end up with a little bit extra, so that has to be trimmed off. So now we're having a lot of fun stitching some quilted pads on the back. This is a lot of starting and stopping of the thread. It doesn't really do it justice on the time lapse, but just stitching straight, keeping over all of my lines that I marked, and trying to make sure I don't manipulate the foam too much, and try to keep it as flat as possible. So now I'm moving on to the gluing the gussets to the I believe that's the back side of the front pocket. This is quite a challenging part. I thought I'd kind of messed it up right here, but I ended up saving it. And then that gets a nice stitch right around the corners. And we close that, and that's the back side of the front pocket. And now this is how I'm attaching the front pocket to the body of the chest bag. This was a little tricky. I had to think it through and come up with a plan ahead of time. But it worked out pretty well. So just working all those edges, trying to make sure everything's aligned, and trying to make sure there's no bunching or, whenever you get around to the corners, and then stitching all of that down. So at this point, the front pocket itself is like a pouch, a fully leather lined pouch with the straps across the front. And now you're going to see me turn it inside out and spend quite a bit of time working the seams. They really have to be pressed and worked to get the nice finished effect. So now I'm starting to work on the back side of this quilted piece. This will be the piece that rests against your chest when you're wearing it. And then this is the back piece that'll be on your back whenever you're wearing the piece. So you can see I'm starting to measure webbing and hardware. All of the webbing is high-grade seatbelt webbing, I think 1.5 inch seatbelt webbing. The buckles and all the hardware are a matte black Cobra buckle that's military grade, quick release. So now I'll be stitching that leather frame to the body of the inside of the chest bag, sort of the lining, and that's a Cordura nylon material that's quilted. So here I'm having to kind of plan ahead of how these straps are going to lay on the body and go across the shoulders. So really making sure the angles were right. So I'm applying the straps. Now applying the quilted and stitching that around. I had to kind of stitch around the bag first and then go back over and fold the straps. So now I'm attaching the pocket to the upper part of the Louis Vuitton piece. So you can kind of start to see how this is going to look. This would prove to be one of the trickiest parts, is getting this binding on with all of these layers. It wasn't an issue of the machine or anything. I have a nice Juki 1508 that I use, industrial machine. It goes through anything, but just material management and trying to keep everything neat and clean. I don't like any of my work to have messed up stitches or anything visible that's a flaw, so I really try to make sure everything is right. And I actually think I made a mistake somewhere along here and had to go back and pull stitches, and luckily I'm usually able to salvage things, but after over 40 hours of work, you don't want to mess something up at the end here. So you can see that binding going on and popping off of the white and the black. All of that had to be glued and now top stitched. And so this is where it's going through the red leather, the Louis Vuitton, the foam, the nylon, and then everything on the back side. And then now we have a final piece. So this is a one-of-a-kind piece. My name's Cody Amos. This is Amos Leather Goods. This piece is actually still available. I made it for a client, and they ended up backing out at the last minute after I did all this work. So if you're interested, hit me up. Thanks for watching. If you stuck through all the way to the end, I really appreciate it. And you guys go check out my Instagram at Amos Leather Goods. Thanks.